Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's John Campea, and this is an open spoiler discussion of Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 3, The Heiress. Now, in case you couldn't tell right from the beginning, this is an open spoiler discussion. We are going to talk in detail about the episode, giving everything away. So if you've not seen the latest episode of The Mandalorian, you may want to click away and come back another time and watch this once you have. And I, of course, am joined again by the better Campea, as she refers to herself as. Ann Campea is here. Ann, thanks for being here.
Hi, everyone.
So here's the thing. Normally, on Thursday nights, we will have the debate. Do we stay awake till midnight and watch it? But we got busy last night and we didn't even think about it and we went to bed. And I woke up this morning, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a new episode of Mandalorian. So we rushed downstairs, watched the new episode of The Mandalorian. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite episode this season so far.
I'm still torn because I have loved every episode so far. I've loved every episode so far. The first episode with Cobb, the second episode with the spiders. This episode is great. We got Bo-Katan in there. I thought that was great. It's so weird. What was your overall impressions of the episode? What did you think about it?
God, it was half an hour long, but it really felt like they had told a very complete story arc.
I said this to Rob this morning. I said, normally you watch something that's like 2.5 hours and you go, wow, that didn't feel any more than an hour and a half, right?
Right.
This was weird. This was a half-hour episode, but it didn't feel like a half-hour episode. Like it felt like a 45, 50-minute long, like they just put so much in it.
And I think it's because the episode before, we didn't get the payoff of them landing on the planet, their destination, right? We got the journey in episode 2. Now we get the Mandalorian frog lady and babies plus Baby Yoda show up on the planet that they were destined to arrive at. She reunites with her husband, which is really, really cute. Like that little storyline is now complete because he's reunited them. But then we get the other Mandos, which is probably my favorite part of the episode, is always seeing other Mandalorians in the episode with him.
Right.
And I think this is the first episode of this season that brings in much more of that Mandalorian lore into it, in terms of Bo-Katan, like you mentioned.
Keep talking.
Who, for those of you guys who watched Rebels, are familiar with that character, because that's ultimately who Sabine gives the Darksaber to rule the Mandalorians, right? And so it's kind of picking up on that storyline if you're familiar. And then if you've read kind of the history of that, it's like the whole purge that happened. And so they kind of like pepper in all these like Star Wars, I guess it just reminds you how big the universe is, right? And how big that storyline can be. Because I think when Bo-Katan was fighting in that war, wasn't she at one time fighting with or for Darth Maul? So there's just like all these connections when you look at that story.
I can't remember I have to go back. I can't remember if she knew that Darth Maul was involved or she was just working with the guy who was also working with Darth Maul. Right.
But there's just like so many connectivity like points in just the little things that Bo-Katan was saying about the reason why this is the way for her, rather than the way that the Mandalorian thinks is the true Mandalorian way.
Right.
So there's a lot of that going on too.
It's good because that's been something. It's good that they finally addressed that, because ever since season 1, with the whole Mandalorians never take off your mask. Have you ever removed it? Has it ever been removed? This is the way. And then everybody's like, well, wait a minute, time out.
Yeah.
We've seen Clone Wars and we've seen Rebels. That is not one of their things. So I like the fact that they very quickly address that. It's just like regular, there's not Earth culture. There's many cultures and many different ways of doing things. And I like that they address that so fast.
Yeah. And the only other thing I would say about this episode is, as much as you jumped out of your seat when Baby Yoda in the last episode ate the fish egg.
Ate the egg. Oh.
Or frog egg, I'm sorry. I jumped out of my seat when that one creature kicked Baby Yoda's crib. into like the pool where they were about to feed that big squid animal.
Yes. I'm like, what the hell?
Oh yeah.
What are they doing?
I was in shock.
And major moment, by the way, just like in Thor Ragnarok when Mjolnir got destroyed, the iconic Baby Yoda crib is gone.
Yeah.
That crib that's been there since season 1, episode 1. Is this like this?
It can get rebuilt though, maybe.
I mean, they can get him another one, I know, but it's like when you think about Baby Yoda and you think of the imagery of Baby Yoda, I always see that floaty carriage crib, right?
Yeah,
so they destroyed it.
And it's interesting that for this instance, it wasn't that they were after Baby Yoda, it was that they were after the Mandalorian armor. They wanted to make some money.
Oh yeah, it was the Beskar. It was the Beskar. Which you figured, Mando should have realized that. He's walking around wearing a fortune. I mean, ever since the first time we saw him in the armor. Because the very first time we saw him in the armor, he walks into that cantina where Carl Weathers is waiting for him. And even Carl's like right away, everybody's looking at you. They're all... I mean, he should know by now that people want his armor.
He's wearing the Cadillac of the...
Yes. He's wearing
the Mandalorian armor.
He's wearing the Maserati of Mandalorian, of any kind of armor anywhere, walking around with that stuff. But here's one of the things that was really interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's funny to me, because I loved last week's episode, and I know you did too. Mm-hmm. It's funny to me that some people didn't really like last week's episode, but love this week's. Hear me out, guys. Last week's episode and this week's episode are the exact same episode. They're the exact... Think about this for a second. Think about it. Okay, so, Mando, tell me if I'm talking about last week's episode or if I'm talking about this week's episode. Mando is on a planet because he's heard there may be clues on this planet to get him to the child's people. When he gets there, he meets an individual who says, I've got your next clue. But for me to lead you to that next clue, I need you to do something for me. The body of the episode then is Mando carrying out that favor that person's needs. They carry out the favor, and then that character gives Mando the information they need about what's got to be done next. What's the next stage? Mm-hmm. Am I talking about last week's episode or am I talking about this week's episode? I'm talking about both, because one of the things I've been saying, one of the things I love about Mandalorian is the fact that the journey is the story. I keep saying it. I will keep on saying it. The journey is the story. People watch these episodes and go, oh, that's a filler episode. No. If you call that a filler episode, you are missing the point of what this show is. This is that old, like Rob and I were talking about this morning. It's like the old Kung Fu show. It's like some of the old Westerns. Every week, it's that journey that is going on. And the journey itself is the story. And that's why I love it. But this one had stormtroopers and some recognizable faces.
Yeah.
By the way, the guy from Sons of Anarchy,
right.
What's his name? Travis Welliver or Titus Welliver. Anyway, who's the Imperial officer who kills himself in it. Always cool to see him. We get our first look this season at Moff Gideon again. Mm-hmm. Giancarlo Esposito popping up. You know what to do. Long live the Empire. Whatever the words that they said were. And he kills himself for it. And I don't know. And I thought Bo-Katan, Katie Sackhoff, I thought Katie was great.
Right.
I really did.
Yep.
And here's the funny thing. She had so few lines. You've got to try to communicate who this character is in such a short amount of time with so very few lines. And I thought she knocked it out of the park. I thought she did a great job with it. But
yeah,
anyway.
I'm curious for those that aren't, like the diehard Star Wars fans, if her lines resonated with you, or if you understood kind of the lore that she was talking to. So I think if you weren't familiar, I wonder if it's still translated in some way. It was confirmed. Like I told a bunch of people a couple weeks ago that it turns out Sasha Banks, who a lot of us thought maybe she was Sabine Wren. Too bad.
I actually found out a few weeks ago, like I found 100% sure a few weeks ago, I won't say how, but that she was not Sabine Wren. I publicly said, it turns out she's not Sabine Wren. I had a whole bunch of people call me a liar, but she's not Sabine Wren.
No, clearly not.
And then at the end of the episode, they mention Ahsoka Tano.
Right.
So the other thing we can say is that she's only in one episode. We've told everybody that. Ahsoka Tano only appears in one episode this season. Whether she's going to be back for more, Other seasons, I don't know. I have no idea, but she's going to be in one. So we know I had originally heard that she was going to be in episode 5, which makes sense because I believe Dave Filoni is directing episode 5.
Right.
And he's got this
favorite character.
He's got this nonstop hard on for that character. I mean, he's completely obsessed with that character. So it just and I said myself, there's no way Dave Filoni doesn't direct the Ahsoka Tano episode himself. But I had another person tell me I was actually wrong, that Ahsoka Tano actually pops up in episode 6.
Okay.
So now I don't know which is true, because I had heard 5 as well initially, but the same place I found out that Sasha Banks was not Sabine Wren is also the same place I found out that Ahsoka shows up in episode 6, even though I had thought it was 5. So I don't know. We'll find out. Let's put it this way. I'm going to be really surprised if we find out that Dave Filoni is not directing the episode with Ahsoka. Because even though I give Dave Filoni a hard time about how obsessed he is with that character, you gotta direct that episode.
Yeah.
It's your character. That's you gotta direct that episode. So I don't know. I'll be surprised. But anyway, what was your favorite part of this episode?
Oh man. I would say that Mandalorian again continues to prove like how much of a badass he is, because I think one of the scenes that bothered me, but then also proved this point, is where they are in that like about to go into the bridge. They see the 20 stormtroopers like waiting at the end of the bridge. And for like 2 minutes, it felt like they were just standing there staring at each other like, what are we going to do? We have no idea. And I'm like thinking, all of your Mandalorians, like, isn't that part of your creed, is like sacrifice and honor and you know, to fight for the way or whatever? And like all of them kind of just standing around looking at each other. But finally Mandalorian is like, screw this. But you gotta do it smart,
right? Like you gotta make sure we do it in such a way that we'll win.
Right. It just, they weren't saying anything either. It was one of those awkward, like, let's stare at each other until somebody figures out what we're doing.
I'm thinking, don't lasers like bounce off of Mando's armor? Don't they just like bounce off him? What's he waiting for?
So finally he's like, fuck this, I'm going in with my like little bombs. Like I just thought it was the right moment to kind of earn that trust, to pay the favor back, and just like for both of them to be like, hey, we both have very different journeys right now, but let's do each other these favors, and I think that's going to pay off later on in the season. Absolutely. Yeah,
I think there's no way. See, I thought at first that we might get one look at Bo-Katan. And I don't know anything about how much Bo-Katan and Katie are going to be in the season. I just don't. That might have been the only time we see her. I had assumed, like other characters, she was going to pop up one episode. But understanding how much because I didn't know if they were just going to ignore it. Clearly they're not. Understanding how much they are tying her in with the Moff Gideon and the Darksaber. She is after him.
Yes.
And so understanding that, I don't know. I'd be surprised if we don't see Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan back again this season. I don't know that we will. I'll just be surprised if we don't, because it seems like they just plugged this in way too tight. And by the way, was I the only one when Mando was trapped under the water, under the cage in the water, and the first Mandalorian landed, that it kind of looked like Cobb from episode 1?
Yeah.
For a split second, I actually thought it was Cobb.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did he get here? But I guess it made more sense.
What about you? What was your favorite part?
Oh, my favorite part? I'll tell you what. I don't mean to be a big softy or anything, but there was something about the way they did it with two people in these huge rubber costumes. When Frog Lady saw Frog Man.
Let's cosplay them.
So let's cosplay them. The way, I don't know,
very sweet.
It hit me as sweeter than I thought it would.
Yeah.
But to me, it was really, really sweet. And so I dug that. I also really loved at the end, as Baby Yoda is now looking at Baby Frog, unbeknownst that Baby Yoda ate a couple of his brothers and sisters. But the way Mando then picks him up and he acts like a baby, like, ah! like reaching his arms out. Like that was adorable.
It was very cute.
The Stormtrooper fight was great. The conversation with Gideon was great. The part that I gasped, last episode, it was Baby Yoda eating the egg. This episode was the Razor Crest falling into the water.
Yeah, that was great.
That was it's like
right at the beginning too.
My one complaint about the episode. And it's a minor thing. It's kind of like the same way I was complaining about, why is Mando just waiting around? His lasers bounce off him. What? It was at the end when the Mon Cal fixes the ship.
Yeah.
And it's like all swamp-like inside. It's like, oh, Mon Cals. It's like, wait a minute. I've seen Mon Calamari battle cruisers. They're immaculate and clean and white and pristine. Like Mon Cal ships have been portrayed as being the most pristine of cleanliness and whatever. And then, then inside there, Mon Cal's just make it, I don't know. It's just a tiny little thing that bothered me. Just a tiny, tiny little thing that bothered me. Okay. Guys, listen, we're going to spend the rest of the episode here. We're going to let you guys guide the rest of the episode. You guys have been firing in a bunch of questions using the Super Chat feature. Thank you so much for that, by the way. So let's go over and see what you guys are saying. We're going to start off with Zombatron, who writes, I'm loving how The Mandalorian brings in EU characters like Cobb and Bo-Katan, but doesn't feel like it's being forced. It feels natural. I'll tell you the thing that I really like about that. Because Cobb was really just in the novels, in a couple of the novels, like in little chapters here and there. But the brilliance of the way they're dealing with this is the fact that I know there's a lot of people watching Mandalorian who have never read a Star Wars novel, who did not watch Clone Wars, and who did not watch Rebels. And nobody feels lost. Right. The way they brought in Cobb, if you did read the books, hey! But if you didn't, you're like, cool new character. If you've seen Clone Wars and Rebels with this week's episode, you'll go, oh my gosh, it's Bo-Katan. But if you haven't, you know what you need to know. Mm-hmm. And you're like, clearly, she's the leader of their people. She's after Moff Gideon. She believes the Darksaber belongs to her. You know everything you need to know. You're not going to have the same depth of appreciation as people who know all the extended stuff. But yeah, the genius in what Favreau is doing here is incorporating these EU elements, but not leaving people out. Yeah. Not leaving the audience out. It's like, oh, you didn't read the fourth book of the seventh generation of the EU novels? Well, then you're just lost. Like, they don't do that. They make sure they bring it in, but they do it in such a way that people who are brand new to these characters are perfectly fine. And I thought that was really smart. Yeah, I agree. All right, let's see. Next up, we have Miguel. Is Miguel next? Yes. Miguel Zayn writes, love the episode. What do you think is the current state of Mandalore in Sequel Trilogy timeline? It's so interesting what they've set up here for future Star Wars. Here's the thing. Right from the beginning of Mandalorian Season 1, they have put a big question out there. The current status of Mandalore, because we are right now dealing with, if we're looking at Rebels ending about 2 to 3 years before the events of Star Wars A New Hope, and about 6 years spanning New Hope, and then this happens about 4 years after Return of the Jedi, we're talking about a dozen years. They're kind of hanging it out there as they've been giving tips and hints along the way, but the actual current status of Mandalore and what's going on there right now, I don't know. I got a feeling they're going to get more and more into that. I believe at some point we're probably going to end up on Mandalore. Yeah, I don't know that for sure. What do you think? Do you think we're going to get more into what's going on with Mandalore itself?
I think so. I think they allude to it in this episode finally, right? And outside of the Baby Yoda returning to his people story arc, that would be the only other one that I think has longevity, is to kind of restore what's going on Mandalore after the purge, after everyone's kind of been separated, etc. Right. And just maybe that's where Mando ends up. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we will get a clearer picture of that. Okay, let's keep going here. Next up is Suthius, who writes, "Hey guys, wow, this episode is top 3 for me. Bryce did an amazing job." By the way, didn't mention that. Bryce Dallas Howard directed this episode.
I also liked her episode in the last season, too.
I loved her episode last season. Anyway, Bryce did an awesome job, and oh my goodness, I couldn't help but get weak in the knees when Frog Lady, here we go, when Frog Lady ran up to her husband. So adorable. I'm sure Mrs. C melted seeing that. And by the way, Suthius tipped in $20 for that. Thank you so much for supporting us that way, Suthius. I think I actually melted more than Mrs. Campea did. I was like, oh my God, this is so sweet. Like I was like, everything else was exciting and fun. Yes. But I don't know, just the way they took these two actors in thick rubber, hardly articulating suits that are impossible to emote in, and somehow, some way.
Same as Mando. You never see his face.
You know what? That's
figure out
true.
his emotion somehow.
That's true. That's a great point. They've done that a great way.
I see a WandaVision type spin-off of the Frog Lady and Man in their own
that's
sitcom.
The next Star Wars spin-off. The Frogs. Meet the Frogs. That's the next spin-off. It's just going to be about them raising their brood of children. That's going to be the whole next thing. Anne just came up with it completely. All right. Let's see. Suthius also writes, "Haven't seen any Clone Wars or Rebels, so I had to look up some brief history on YouTube as where in time Bo-Katan is and what all she's been doing prior to The Mandalorian. Katie was great though." And Suthius, you just completely prove the point I was saying a little bit earlier, right? You as somebody who has not seen Clone Wars or Rebels or whatever, you were able to jump in and still appreciate it. Maybe you didn't get the same depth that people who have watched that other content did, but you were not lost. You were not left behind. And it leaves you with this dangling little thing of this great little rabbit hole to go down. I saw minimum today, 3 explaino videos pop up today on who Bo-Katan is.
Oh, really?
Oh, minimum I saw 3. And I'll bet there's at least a dozen that just popped up in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, it happens all the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like you watch a movie, for example, that's maybe based on a novel and you get just enough flavor of it and you want to know more, then you go back and read the book because there's usually more depth and content in what's written rather than what you see on screen. I think the same can be said about this story. It's one of my favorite ones, actually, is just the story of The Mandalorian.
I agree. All right, next up, we've got Iconic Reactions writes, one of 2. "Hey guys, I just started watching Mandalorian Season 1, and I'm liking it so far. Question for Anne, what are you looking forward to seeing in Raya?" Well, Iconic, we're not here to talk about Raya and The Last Dragon or anything else.
Oh, yeah.
We're here to specifically talk about
Tweet it
Star
to me.
Wars, Mandalorian, but to the Raya movie, as it's a Filipina character from what I've seen. So what are you hoping they include? Side note, I effing love Longanisa, Filipino sausage. Love from Toronto. Again, we're not really here to talk about Raya and The Last Dragon, but I mean, we can tell people that prior to leaving Hasbro, Raya and The Last Dragon was actually a project you were working on.
Yeah, that was the last one I was working on. So feel free to tweet me your question. I'll give you my thoughts on Twitter.
But I know you are looking forward to that movie.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm looking forward to Mandalorian having its first Filipino character on it too, if they have not already.
Isn't Sasha Banks? No, she's married to a Filipino, right? That's right. I'm saying, wait, isn't Sasha Banks?
We're close. We're getting closer.
Getting close to that.
We had Appa last week, representing the Asian community.
Yep,
so
Appa was
soon.
Okay, let's see. Next up, Kevin Rubio writes, "Can we talk about the music for this episode? Great. Here's the cool thing is they, in a number of episodes, look, you've got your base Mandalorian theme, bum, 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 which is amazing. By the way, there's this dude on YouTube, I couldn't tell you his name, but a dude who does the entire theme of Mandalorian just on his acoustic guitar. You've seen me watch it. It's so good. But anyway, one of the cool things they've done with the music is they've done different variations of just that same theme. And the episode part that really jumped out to me musically was when we first see the ship on the water. and the camera starts sweeping in, and it's just a slightly different way. Ba 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 ba, and it just really crescendos right just as the thing comes in. They've done a very, very good job with the music in this. So Kev, yeah, you're right. I mean, the music has been great. Was there any particular part in the episode where the music really stood out to you?
Oh man, just all of it. I would say I still am stuck on the music that was happening for episode 1. I think that's really where I was like, oh crap,
yeah.
They really stepped up their game for this season. But
yeah, they really have in every single way. All right, next up, David Tapia writes, Carl Weathers is directing episode 4. For someone with limited directing experience, do you think it's easier to direct yourself or just focusing on directing? That's a good question. And remember, an episode of something like Mandalorian is a great thing to make your first directorial thing. Dave Filoni did it in season 1. It's the first time he ever directed anything live action. And I think it worked out well. I think you're going to see the payoff for that when he gets to his episodes this season. I think you're going to see his growth as a director. So I think this is great for Carl Weathers to do it. As far as directing yourself, even in the few things I've done, I've never done that. Like, I've never directed myself, even in the little crap that I've made. So I don't know. I mean, there are some people like Clint Eastwood does it, effortlessly. Ben Affleck seems to do it effortlessly. But then I've heard, somebody like Mel Gibson say it's actually very difficult because he did it with Braveheart, obviously. And I think he's done it other times as well. So I don't know. The advantage is it is just at 1 episode. So it's not a huge long commitment. It's had a long time. So I don't know. And by the way, I don't even know if Carl Weathers is in episode 4.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that question. Is this a situation where he actually is directing himself or not?
Yeah, so he might not even be directing himself in this, but it's a great question, man. It's an excellent question. All right, next up. That was David Tapia. Now we got Ryan Lohner who writes, Season 1 finally got me to check out all of Clone Wars and Rebels to get the whole story on the Darksaber. But I still get the idea anyone who hasn't seen them would still be able to follow this fine. Again, Ryan, this is exactly what I was getting at myself. That is part of the genius of, it's not just Favreau, it's also another guy Favreau has worked with, Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige and John Favreau, and maybe Favreau got this from Kevin Feige, that you don't have to see every MCU movie to be able to feel like you've caught up. We know somebody who watched Infinity War before seeing most of the other MCU movies. Like, she had only seen a couple of MCU movies, and she was able to sit down, watch Infinity War, and never felt like she was lost. That is a great trait, and John Favreau clearly has that too. And so, Ryan, I think you raise an excellent point, and I'm glad that you're enjoying it. And I think you're right. I think people without that background are going to be able to enjoy it and not feel left behind. And that's key. And for those of us who have seen all that other stuff, it gives us that extra deeper layer of appreciation. All right. Let's see. So excellent point, Ryan. All right. Next up, Ryan also writes, very impressed at the sheer joy they were able to get out of the frog prosthetics. You feel every bit of that emotion. Damn right. Ryan is completely thinking along the same lines as me today. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look, and those rubber suits can barely move. There's other than eyes blinking,
right?
Those faces have no articulation at all. And somehow, some way, when Ma and Pa Frog, I don't know what to call them, when Ma and Pa Frog see each other and run towards each other, and the way they hug and use the actors inside those suits, just using whatever movement they could use, and then the musical notes they use to accentuate that Bryce Dallas Howard had them hit with right there. It was a great moment.
Are you crying right now?
I might be crying right now. It was sweet. I don't care what anybody else says. I thought it was sweet.
I want the frog lady to go on her own. I enjoyed the episode where she was by herself, going into the spa in the winter time. Just
spa day. Frog Lady Spa Day. A whole spin-off episode. Frog Lady Spa Day. Okay. Let's see. Next up. The Last Shady Walking writes, awesome episode. This show looks like a movie. And it does. And now, I will say this. And Rob and I were talking about this off camera before, but there is a difference between full feature film production quality and all that kind of stuff and production value versus Mandalorian. There is a difference. But what they're doing on Mandalorian is so impressive for television, and they're breaking new ground, using new technologies, doing it. It is better than this. I would still say it's not quite big budget cinematic theatrical experience stuff we're seeing, but it is certainly a new step ahead for television stuff. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Like as far as production values of Mandalorian versus feature film, do you see them being on level with feature films yet, or how are you seeing it?
I think it's beautiful. Yeah, I think it's definitely a level up from the production value of other streaming shows. That's for sure. I don't know if it's on par with what we would see in a feature film, but I do think from like top shows that are on Netflix or Hulu or some of the other streaming services, I think it's definitely up there.
Up there. Yeah, right up there. Okay, next up, we have Cobe Porter, who writes, John, I know you don't do reaction videos, but I think we would all love to see you and Ann do reaction videos to The Mandalorian. Well, that's a little long.
It is long.
That's a little long.
We can react to like the first 2 minutes.
To do a reaction video. I mean, that's no longer a reaction video. That's a watch along.
Yeah.
That's a full-fledged watch along. Here's the thing. I don't know that I want to do a watch along because I don't want to feel... I don't want a camera on me as I'm watching a show. I just want to be able to sit back, relax, fart, whatever, as I'm watching a show too. And Anne's like, I don't want to worry about I'm on camera, and I just want to enjoy the show and then talk about it afterwards. I mean, it's one thing to do commentaries on movies that I've already seen, I already know, but I don't know. My first experience watching an episode of a show or a movie, I kind of want my privacy when I'm doing that. I don't know. Like, would you ever want to do like full watch? He also
watches TV with just socks on and nothing else. So that's probably why he doesn't want to do a watch.
That's pay-per-view, honey. That's pay-per-view. That's stuff we don't do for free. Yeah, charge people for that.
Oh, I forgot. He also wears that hat he's wearing. So it's a hat, socks
in the hat.
Nothing else.
That's it. Wow.
I can't.
We're just giving away way too much here. Okay. Now that we've burned that image in everybody's head, shall we move on to the next question? Okay. Next question. We get Josh Bing writes, amazing episode. At this point, how old is Bo-Katan? Also, I bet Ashley will still be the voice of Ahsoka, like Sam Witwer is still the voice of Maul in Solo. 1000% no.
Yeah, how is that if they have an actress playing her?
You're not going to have Ashley doing the voice.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people would love to see that, but you don't go out and get an actress like Rosario Dawson. Mm-hmm. And then say, oh, by the way, Rosario, it's not actually going to be your voice.
Right.
No, you don't go out and get Rosario Dawson for that. So I know there would be a lot of fans of the animations that would, still love to hear Ashley's a voice because they just come to know her as that voice. I think she might even do I don't know, you guys, in the novels, in the audio versions of the novels, does Ashley do the voice of her of Ahsoka in the novels? I'm not sure if she does or not. I wouldn't be surprised if she does.
Yeah.
But I 1000% no. You're going to hear Rosario Dawson. Maybe as an Easter egg or for fun, there'll be like a line that'll be Ashley's voice or something. Maybe they'll figure out a way to work Ashley in somehow, some way. But for the most part, no, you're not going to have Rosario Dawson going,
no,
while they do dub over. I mean, yeah, they did that for Darth Maul, but that's because Ray Park couldn't act. Yet at that point, he didn't have the voice for Darth Maul, but you don't go and get Rosario Dawson for that. But other than that, how old is Bo-Katan at this point? I don't know, because I don't even know how old she was. Like when we came across her again in Rebels, I don't even know how old she was in Rebels. But she's probably about 10 years older than whatever she was in Rebels.
Yeah.
Like 10 to 12 years older than she was in Rebels. But I don't know how old she was in Rebels. So
yeah,
if you guys in the live chat, some people, James Argenta saying in her 50s,
40s, maybe 30s.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And also people are saying, yes, she did do the voice of Ahsoka in the novel.
Yeah.
In the audio version of the novel. So yeah, but I just don't think you're not going to take out Rosario Dawson's voice. All right. Next up, we've got Senior Film writes. It's crazy how we can visibly see Mando's emotions while he has the helmet on. That's been amazing. Like when Katie Sackhoff took off her helmet, you can feel him saying to himself, whoa, what are you doing? It blows my mind. Yes, I mean, and that is also, it's not just the actor in the suit, because most of the time, we found this out in season 1, like 80% of the time it wasn't Pedro Pascal in the suit anyway.
Right.
So it's not just that. In order for you as the audience member and for us as audiences to feel that emotion and all the things emoting from the character, it's more than just the actor's performance. It's also the director's decision of camera angles, the proper musical notes, other things happening around them. It takes a big choreographed effort, I think, for a character in armor and a total face covering, for us to feel them emoting the way they have. Like, yeah, it's everything. Like when they took off their helmets, you could feel the shock, right? Same thing as in episode 1 of season 2 with Cobb. When Cobb's in there, has it off, like you can feel indignation, you can feel worry and fear, like when Baby Yoda's in trouble. Just, they do a great job, not just the actors in the suits, but the directors as well, making sure every visual cue available to them gets communicated to us and we feel that emotion. What do you think is the key for us, like feeling Mando's emotion like so clearly? It feels like as if he wasn't even wearing a mask sometimes.
Yeah, just I think you're right. I think it's all those elements put together. What I think of is, if I've never been at acting school, but I feel like this is one of the first things that you should exercise is trying to convey emotion without speaking. Which it's just like this show has to do it in so many ways, because it's not just Mando, it's other characters like the frog people. There's so many characters that have to show that expression without being able to actually show movement in their face or anything like that. So I think it's, to your point, it's all of those elements coming together. I tried to look up the age, and I think some people were saying like 50. I'm going to guess Bo-Katan's like 40. Ish. Yeah,
because I think Katie's like in her mid to late 30s at this point, I think. So I'm not really sure. Okay, let's move on here. Senior Film also writes, another example of Mando showing his emotions while wearing a helmet was when Katie told him he was in a cult. That was an awkward moment. That was basically in a cult, and you can feel him getting offended. I love how they were able to pull this off. And you know what? That is a great thing to bring up, Senior Film, because it basically, in that moment, what we're understanding is that we're understanding just how isolated Mando has truly been from the full Mandalorian culture.
Yep.
And they've been giving us hints of that with the fact that I need to find others like me. But he really has been isolated from the rest of Mandalorian culture. And to find out, oh, by the way, you've been living in this wacko sex cult. Just letting you know, you've been raised in this
poor guy
den of extremists kind of thing. I don't know. So you're right. You could feel him being offended.
Yeah.
And he was like, F you, and takes off.
Yeah. And there's no wrong way in either of their ways. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the way that that factions ended up splitting up. And that was ultimately what they thought was the right way. But yeah, I can't even imagine being in his armor and hearing the news for the first time, like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're the one who took off your helmet.
You're not even Mandalorians. And that was his first reaction. Okay, so you're not, it's like that Cobb guy. You're not actually Mandalorians. Where'd you get the armor from? And she's like, bitch, this has been my family for 3 generations. Where'd you get yours? You know, right? So yeah, I kind of like that. All right, let's keep going here. Where are we at? That was Senior Film. We're now at Mad 1306 writes, I think Ahsoka Tano will show up in episode 5 since Dave Filoni directs that episode, and since he made that character, it would make sense. Listen, like I said, through certain ways, I've heard that it was going to be episode 5 that she shows up. And I am completely with you. It makes absolute sense to me. Like, I even remember saying on a show, probably months ago that there's no way you have one episode with Ahsoka Tano and Dave Filoni's not directing that episode. It makes no sense to me that you'd not have Dave Filoni direct that episode. Even I, who thinks Dave Filoni is a way too obsessed with that character, even I think it would be a miscarriage of galactic justice if Dave Filoni does not direct that episode. But then I have heard that I was wrong and that it's actually episode 6 she pops up in, so I don't know. I'm in the great position where I get to be surprised.
Ooh, okay. So we finished episode 3.
Yep.
And you're saying 5.
I'd initially heard 5.
4 is going to be spent doing the journey.
More journey to get there, yeah.
I'm going to take the episode 6.
That's what I'm being told.
Just because
it just makes no sense to me.
It seems like if this is like the next major thing in the journey, to just have one episode of the journey happen and then all of a sudden Ahsoka Tano's in episode 5.
But again, she's only in for one episode because she's gonna come and then she's gonna go.
I don't know. I just feel like in terms of like pacing and how this has gone so far, that I could see them not meeting her until 2 more episodes from now.
By the way, is it just me? Comment in the live chat there, guys. Is it just me, or does it now actually feel like we have seen everything there was in the trailers? Have we not now seen? I'm trying to think of something in other than Gina Carano and Carl Weathers.
Sure.
I feel like everything else that was sans Gina Carano and Carl Weathers. I feel like
we'll probably see that in the next episode.
Maybe that'll be episode 4
because if he's directing himself.
Yeah, I know. Maybe that'll be episode 4.
Right.
It's a great question. Okay, let's move on here. Let's see here. Super Miklas just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Iconic Reaction writes, 2 choices, choose one. The ability to have Anakin's lightsaber and the Force, or Thor's hammer and immortality. Also, Prime Yoda versus Sidious, who wins? Well, I mean, one question at a time. Oh my God. Look, it has been my wet dream since I was 5 years old to be a Jedi and have the Force.
Yeah.
I mean, but Thor's hammer and the immortality of a Asgardian god? I'd have Mjolnir or a lightsaber. You know what? Screw. No, I gotta stick with Force user and a lightsaber. I gotta stick with Force using a lightsaber because I can go all Darth Sidious and try to find out Darth Plagueis' secret to immortality if I want to later. So I can worry about that. I gotta go with that. You take a lightsaber or Mjolnir.
Yeah, I would take
King's weapon.
I would take the lightsaber too.
Yeah, it's hard not to take the lightsaber.
I've seen way too many stories lately where folks who have immortality just don't know what to do with the rest of their lives. Is that weird? Like
you're thinking of The Good Place.
Yeah, where it's like
you're thinking about the finale of The Good Place.
I think that's what it is.
Everybody's got bored.
I'm like, at some point you've just done everything, and then what? So yeah, I'd take the Force too.
All right. Next up, we have again Super Nicholas just sends in a super chat. Thank you, Super Nicholas. Double Crit writes, for me, what that destroyed hunk of shit Mando flew at the end breaks verisimilitude. Sorry, but in space travel, you can't have pieces of ships flying off. Well, I mean, it depends. It depends. Because what is required to remain sealed, right? Because he made a point of that in the last episodes, like, we can have the bridge totally sealed.
Right.
And we're good. Other than that, what do you need? I mean, listen, we're also talking about Star Wars. There is no sound in space, right? And yet we hear, we all ties the sound, right? That there is no sound in space. But realistically, I mean, I don't know. They were in the bridge. That is properly sealed off. The parts that are needed and required to make the ship go, we're still using. Here's the thing I didn't. This is the other little nitpick. The Razor Crest entering the atmosphere, is that So, okay, that's a little bit of verisimilitude, but is that what they do? Is that what happens with all Star Wars ships? Because I've never seen them do that before in Star Wars.
Where they start to blow up?
Where re-entry has the big heat thing like we would in the real world. I've never seen them do that before. Just ships fly down into the atmosphere. So I don't know if that had something to do with his automated guidance being out or...
Something. They were, alluding to something wasn't functioning.
Yeah, they were playing around with that a bit. But yeah, look, by all intents and purposes of our real world and the laws of mechanics, there's no way the Razor Crest would fly. There's just no way.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that thing. It's a piece. If it was a car, it wouldn't even drive.
No.
So, I mean, there's that. All right, next up. Super Nicholas again sends in another super chat. Thank you, man. Mr. 47 writes, do you think Sam Witwer would leap at the opportunity to play Starkiller in a live action film of the games he starred in? I would love to see it. Oh, I can tell you undoubtedly he would. Absolutely he would. Because I mean, I remember we were at the premiere of Solo and we were surprised. I had been given a lot of information about that movie, but I was surprised when Darth Maul popped up at the end. And then when he spoke, I remember saying to you, that sounds like Sam. Like, this sounds like actually Sam. And then we bumped into Sam, Sam Witwer, who does the voice of Darth Maul. We bumped into him at the party. He's like, dude, how did we have no idea you were even in this? He goes, I was so hard keeping it from everybody. Couldn't tell anybody. Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, absolutely. I have no doubt. Of course he would, because I think anybody would.
Yeah, of course.
Anybody would. Now, will they actually do it? Oh, I don't think so. But if they did, would Sam Witwer jump at that? Of course he would, because he's not stupid. He's not dumb. Of course he would. Okay, next up. We've got Super Nicholas. This time writes something in and he writes, love the "we have them trapped" scene. Soon as he said it, I knew it would be a cargo control area. Did that humor scene work for you? It absolutely did. As soon as Welliver's, I think that's the actor's name. Welliver went like, wait, where? Because he told, like, you could tell the commander figured out exactly what the Mandalorian's plan was. And then sure enough, blow the hatch, sucked him up. A lot of murder.
Yeah.
A lot of murder in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, that's true. There was a lot this episode.
Yeah, I mean, those stormtroopers, just some kid from a town signed up for military service to try to serve the galaxy. He thinks he's signing up to make the galaxy a better place. Ends up still being with the Empire when it falls, thinking we're going to make the galaxy great again and all this kind of stuff. Ends up getting a Mandalorian knife in the neck. A lot of murder in Mandalorian. Lots of murder. But yeah, but it was hilarious. I mean,
yes.
Oh no, we've got them in the...
There's always a lot of comedy in this, like peppered throughout the episodes.
Oh, there are. They always give you reasons to smile. That's the other genius of John Favreau. John Favreau is so good. Whether you're talking about an Iron Man movie or Chef or Swingers or whatever. I mean, John Favreau's got a way of taking scenes as a director or as an actor and just making you smile. Okay, next up, K Major writes, I legit was scared for the couple's babies when Mando left the child with them. I'm not going to lie. I expected another egg or two to disappear. And the way I had it playing out, as soon as Mando showed up at their apartment, by the way, how did he know where their apartment was? I have no idea. But the moment he shows up at their place and leaves Baby Yoda, I had it all playing out in my head. He's going to come back and they're about to kill Baby Yoda because he ate more of their children or something. I just didn't know, but they went the sweet route. And
it was very cute. Very cute.
And again, look at a bunch of people complaining, oh, Baby Yoda's a monster. Baby Yoda's a baby.
Yeah.
Babies are going to do what babies do. Oh, I see something shiny.
He's hungry.
And I can eat that. And they put, look, I don't know if any of you have been around babies. They put everything in their mouth. They put freaking everything in their mouth. I mean, so, yeah, it is what it is. But yes, I also, K Major, was a little bit scared for the babies. All right. Ladislav Misinik writes, this episode was so much fun. It absolutely was. Laughed out loud multiple times. Almost fell out of my chair when we got them trapped in the cargo bay control room. And don't play with your food. Oh, yeah, I like that too. Don't play with it too. By the way, we talked last week about it kind of looking like with the spiders coming out. There was an Aliens homage there, right?
Sure.
and the thing comes out of the soup.
Yeah.
And does the face hugger thing. I mean, obvious. That was clearly, whether it's Favreau himself or whether it was Bryce Dallas Howard dropping hints, but it was probably Favreau. There's clearly a lot of love for aliens.
Yeah.
Clearly a lot of love for the Alien franchise in there. And that was kind of sweet. But yes, don't play with your food. I did dig that. Okay. Thanks for that, Ladislav. Next up, where did we leave off? I had a big jump. That was Ladislav. Now we're at Mista47, who writes, have you guys been to Downtown Disney this year, and did you ever show Anne the movie Alien or Aliens? Speaking of Alien or Aliens, we have been to Downtown Disney, or am I thinking of City Walk? I know we've been to City Walk.
We've been to City Walk. We haven't been to Downtown Disney since they opened California Disney's eatery area.
You're right. You know what? No, you're right. I stand correct. We haven't been there.
At all since COVID.
Yeah, Disneyland seasons passes are expensive.
Yeah.
And we, in lieu of other vacations, we buy Disneyland passes.
Right.
And because we go like once every 6 weeks, we'll get in the car, drive to Disneyland. Because that's a great thing about living in Southern California. We only live about an hour away from Disneyland. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we miss going to Disneyland.
Oh yeah, I'm sure everybody else does too.
Although if they were open right now, I wouldn't go.
No. Although we're very lucky to go on the Rise of the Resistance before everything happened.
Just before everything got shut down.
I think we got on the ride in February.
Yep.
And then COVID hit in March,
I think it was days before they shut everything down. We got on the Rise of the Resistance ride,
which is amazing.
And then that was that, and it was all shut down. But here's looking forward to better days, my friends. Here's looking forward to better days. All right, Dave Tapia writes. Where'd Dave go? There he is. Dave Tapia writes. Janina Gavankar tweeted earlier today that she worked on Mando. Could it be her Battlefront 2 character, Iden Visera, who is, of course, the big character? I forgot the actress's name. Coming to live action. Let me think of the timeline of that. Because in the game, Verso or Versio, I can't remember how you pronounce it, actually a pretty good little story in Battlefront 2. So she's this Imperial officer, eventually joins up with all the rebels. She meets Princess Leia and all this kind of stuff. Pretty interesting story in there. Could we be seeing the character? Maybe. I mean, that's possible. They could do that. If I had to bet $5, I'd bet no. But I wouldn't bet $10. I'd bet $5. I would not bet $10. So I'm going to guess no, but I got to go and look that up because I did not hear that she had. Tweeted that out. But I will keep my eyes open. That's a really interesting question. Maybe it will be. But if they do, I'm sure those of us who have played Battlefront 2 will go, oh, that's so and so. And people who haven't seen Battlefront 2 are going to be none. It's not going to have to feel lost at all because that's the way Jon Favreau does it. All right, let's move on here. That was David Tapia who writes, thanks for sending that in, David. I had not heard that. Thank you for that. Lucky Dragon writes, John, it's not a hard-on. Ahsoka is essentially Filoni's daughter. Imagine if you created a Star Wars character. You'd put them in everything. No, I mean, I'm sorry. I disagree. I disagree because Filoni has also made a lot of other characters and a lot of other better characters, quite frankly. But he's got this obsession with everything has to come back to Ahsoka Tano. Everything, like even in Rebels, he had to bring Ahsoka Tano there. And now we're in this and they got to bring in Ahsoka Tano. To his defense, though, it's not like not everybody feels, actually very, very few people feel about Ahsoka Tano. I don't like the character, personally. I don't like the Ahsoka Tano character. But a lot of people do. The character's got a lot of fans. And so I could see doing that. But yeah, I'm sorry. Like if Ahsoka Tano was the only contribution that Dave Filoni has made to the Star Wars universe, then I would get it. Dave Filoni has contributed a lot to the Star Wars universe. Like a lot. And I just don't know why everything has to keep coming back to that one character. That being said, even as somebody who doesn't like the Ahsoka Tano character, when I heard that they were going to get Rosario Dawson to play Ahsoka Tano, even I had to go, holy shit, that's going to be pretty good. And it's not just because Rosario Dawson's a great actress. That's a great fit.
Yeah.
Like Rosario Dawson playing that character. Like even somebody as cold-hearted as me towards that character, even I had to go, holy shit, that's going to be really good.
Right.
And even I, as much as I will criticize Filoni sometimes for being too obsessed with that one character, even I think he's got to direct the episode she's in. I mean, maybe he won't. I'll be impressed if he doesn't. But even I think something's wrong in the universe and the balance of the universe if Dave Filoni does not direct the episode that's got Ahsoka Tano in it, being played by Rosario Dawson. It seems like a missed opportunity if they don't. And that's coming from me, who doesn't even like the character. And I'm saying I think it would be a complete missed opportunity. But I don't know. You and I have never really talked about Ahsoka Tano all that much because you and I never watched Clone Wars together, but we watched Rebels together.
Right.
So I don't know. What are you thinking about this right now?
In terms of if she's a good character?
Yeah.
I don't think I have a strong opinion like you do. I think she fit well for what the narrative was for Rebels. You know,
even I thought she wasn't bad in Rebels.
Just enough, right? So I don't think I have that adversity that you do. I'm interested to see what she's gonna do in this series. I really am. Is she just like a very quick connectivity point? Is there gonna be more to it? There are going to be
some very upset fans because despite everything that has been revealed about it, I think there are a lot of fans who are still thinking you're going to see Ahsoka Tano in a lightsaber fight with Darth Gideon with the Darksaber. And let's be clear, I don't know that doesn't happen. I don't know that doesn't happen. I really doubt that's going to happen. I think she is simply going to be the next guidepost. As Mando progresses through the story, he's really coming across guideposts, characters who point him in the next stage he needs to go. And I think that's probably what Ahsoka's going to be. That doesn't mean I don't think we're going to see a little bit of lightsaber action, whether it's stormtroopers or local ruffians show up or whatever. But I really don't think the one thing a lot of people were hoping to see, which is going to be like Ahsoka Tano with her lightsabers fighting Moff Gideon with the Darksaber. I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't know.
Think so either. But I also think for Mando, this will be a learning experience for him, right? He's not so familiar with the ways of the Jedi.
He didn't even know he came from a dark sex cult in the Mandalorian.
Yeah, so I think if anything, he's just going to learn a lot from her character about what's actually happening outside of like his little sphere of the world.
All right, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Raymond Verrata who writes, Stormtrooper fight for season finale. Mandalorian Stormtrooper fight for season finale. I don't know if that sounds like a good season finale. That sounds like just an appetizer.
Yeah.
Mando's going to rip through any Stormtrooper. Mandalorian Stormtrooper fight for season finale. That seems kind of anticlimactic to me.
Is everyone thinking that the Darksaber is going to change hands in this season? Like, do you think that's going to happen?
Oh.
I just don't know.
I hope so. Only because when you end season 1 on the Darksaber was the cliffhanger, right? That was the cliffhanger. When you end season 1 with Moff Gideon has the Darksaber, I feel like you got to resolve that in the next season. Unless the Darksaber, I mean, I don't know, maybe contrary to my own point, this is about the Mandalorian, and the Darksaber's fate is so tied to that of the Mandalore. Maybe the Darksaber itself becomes the MacGuffin that governs the entire series and not just one season storyline.
That's a good point.
So you know what? I was about to say, yes, I do think it'll change hands, and I just talked myself out of it. So yeah, I'm thinking you're right. I'm thinking we don't see Darth Gideon lose the Darksaber this season.
I don't think we see it in a Mandalorian's hand at the end of the season.
You know what? You might be right, because we've only got 5 episodes left.
Right.
We've only got 5 episodes left. So, all right. Next up here. That was Raymond. Next up. Briggs6262 writes, think we'll see Lars Mikkelsen reprise Thrawn in live action. Was great seeing Katie Sackhoff reprise Bo-Katan. For those of you who don't know, Mads Mikkelsen's brother, Lars Mikkelsen, did the voice of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Mm-hmm. Could we see him come in and play the live action version? I don't think. There was a conversation amongst Lucas execs once that made me. You gotta understand, I love Grand Admiral Thrawn. I've loved Grand Admiral Thrawn most of my life because, I mean, it was when I was younger when the Heir to the Empire book series first came out, and that was my first exposure to Grand Admiral Thrawn. And even though he was the villain in that, I loved the character. I love that they've brought him in to Star Wars now, although it's Grand Admiral Thrawn's become a big example of how there is no consistency in the Star Wars canon anymore, because like in the Rebels show, he's clearly a villain. But then in the novels, in the Thrawn novels, he's actually very heroic.
Right.
And he's actually he's got a kind heart. He's got all this kind of stuff. And then he's something totally different in Rebels. But whatever, be that as it may. I actually prefer the Thrawn novels. And I'm talking about the new ones. I prefer the Thrawn that we get in like Thrawn Alliances and Thrawn Ascendancy. Like, I prefer the Thrawn in these novels than the Thrawn we got in Rebels. Mm-hmm. And so right now, I don't even know that they have a clear idea about who Thrawn is. And so I don't think we'll get him.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll get him.
It doesn't feel like it sits in the narrative right now.
Yeah. So, and I got a feeling after, I don't know. We'll see. It's possible, but I would guess no, but I'd be open for it. I mean, I as a fan like you, I'd be open to it. Okay, next up. Mohammed Bakir writes, I feel like Mando is a bit OP. Anyway, will they will have to do something to make the fight. Oh, you probably mean overpowered.
Oh.
They will have to do something to make the fight scenes have higher stakes, especially when Baby Yoda is not there. Well, I mean, look, on the one hand, we've talked about it, as he's got the Beskar armor, it's hard, which is with a laser gun, to take him out. But at the same time, those sailors got the best of him pretty quick. Right? I mean, they trapped him. They were about to kill him. If the other Mandalorians didn't show up, I don't know that Mando was going to get out of that. And so, and even like in season 2, when all the other bounty hunters are there trying to take the baby from him in season 1, the rest of the Mandalorians had to come and save him. He wasn't going to get out of that. So I don't know. I think they've done, personally, I think they've done a pretty good job of showing that he's a badass and he can take care of business, but he's not invincible. The Rhino beat him. Again, he was about to get defeated by the other bounty hunters in season 1. He got beat by those ship squid face monsters, and I can't remember the name of the race. I mean, we've seen him beat several times. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. How would you answer that? Like, do you think they've overpowered him, or?
No, not at all. I think he has enough to sustain, but I think the thing about Mando that makes him scary, but also might be to his detriment, is the fact that he follows the creed, right? Like, this is the way. He will do what he can, but he's also been pretty pragmatic, I would say. Like, in situations where he's like, well, this can't happen, he's pretty open about, in his dialogue, about like, oh shit, this is, we could burn up right now. Like, he's pretty like open about like, I'm in trouble right here.
He's
like,
cognizant of his mortality.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he makes light of it. So I think he's like, they've stacked up his like armor and everything that he carries with him so that he can beat everybody? No, not at all.
Yeah, he's been beat. By the way, he got beat by Jawas. He got beat by Jawas in season 1.
Yeah.
He got his ass knocked out by Jawas. So
Yeah.
I don't know. So I think they've balanced it out all right. I think they balanced it out okay. Okay. Senior Film writes, now I see why they said they could spin off characters from this season. You got Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, Cobb Vann, Cara Dune, and maybe more to come. So what Senior Film was talking about, that's a good callback, Senior Film, is Bob Iger actually said in I believe it was an investor's call last year, like just after season 1 had come out. He said, yeah, we're like going into next season, we're going to be able to spin this off. We're going to be able to create a universe of shows here. And I feel like, and this isn't a bad thing, I feel a little bit like they're throwing spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to play this out. They're going to see which characters really hit the way they hope they hit and how the fans react to them. And based on that, they'll probably pick one or two. Boba Fett's been a name for a generation, so they don't need to worry about that.
Right.
But Bo-Katan, Cobb,
Frog Lady.
the Frog Lady series,
husband.
Meet the Frogs. I mean, that's got to come. Yeah, I do think so. That's a good callback on that one, Senior Film. All right, next up, we've got where are we? Olenti writes, I watched Clone Wars and Rebels after season 1 of Mandalorian. I think a lot of people did. And I'm glad I did because of the tie-ins. This show has been a catalyst for me to appreciate Star Wars again. See, I don't know that Mandalorian would have turned a lot of people on to Clone Wars or Rebels or stuff like that, or even some of the more extended stuff like the novels, whatever, until the last scene. As Moff Gideon cuts his way out of the fallen TIE fighter with the Darksaber.
Yeah.
Now, this is the one time that somebody who did not know the lore would look at it and go, well, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
And they look around and they see everybody else going, oh my God, it's the Darksaber! And they're pissing themselves. And, and then people look and say, what the hell are you? Okay, well, I guess I got to go and watch this stuff now. I don't know the Mandalorian would have turned people on to that extended stuff as nearly as much until that Darksaber.
There's enough. There's really enough. And they're doing such a good job of just peppering it in. I think this has been the theme of our conversation today, which is just enough to get the average fan through the episode and you know what's going on, but enough to pique the interest of those who are curious. That exact moment that happened for this person in season 1 is the moment I had when I watched Rebels and they pulled out the Darksaber in Rebels. I went through this whole rabbit hole of reading all of the Mandalore, and I was like, this is the craziest story. I had no idea.
With the Mandalore. You went through all the I see what you did there. That was very clever, honey.
Thank you.
By the way, show people that shirt. I love that shirt.
Oh.
Snack time.
Snack time.
I love it. Okay. Where are we at now? We are at Douglas Armstrong, who writes, do you think season 2 or the show will end with heroes teaming up to retake Blacksaber, the Darksaber that is, and planet Mandalore? No. There's like 5 half-hour episodes left to go. So I don't see that. I see them all teaming up to do something, but retaking the Darksaber, and that's a lot to accomplish in 5 episodes left.
No, not in this season, but it could be what you were saying, which is if there's longevity after Baby Yoda, the Baby Yoda story arc, it could very well be this.
And don't forget, like the Armorer gave Mando his mission this season.
Right.
You got to get this baby to its people. Now, when he finds their people, he ain't leaving Baby Yoda with their people.
No.
That ends the show. I mean, so maybe, but I think that might be the big thing. Maybe that's the big thing they team up for, to fight the final foe, to get the actual final location of where they got to go. But I don't think it's going to be to retake the Darksaber.
Right.
But I don't know that. So we'll have to wait and see. All right. Let's see. We only got time for a couple more, guys. So if you have not sent in one yet, don't send one in because we're just about out of time. James L.H. writes, hey, John and Ann, nearly 1 a.m. UK, but I had to stay up for you guys. Thank you so much, James. Enjoyed the episode, not seen the animation, so I was concerned being left behind, but it was okay. Nice surprise seeing Titus as a Bosch fan. Of course, one of his shows is Bosch, but he's been in, Titus Welliver has been in so much stuff. And of course, I'm a big Sons of Anarchy fan, so I just remember him as like a member of the IRA. I think that's what he was a member of with the Irish Kings in that one. But every time he pops up in anything, Like, he even popped up, I think, in that bad Shaft remake they just did last year. And I even like seeing him in that. Yeah. He's got this great, powerful presence about him. I just love him.
He's so recognizable, right?
Yeah. And when you see him as like this Imperial officer, we're like, he was born to play. It's just too bad he died so fast, but he was born to play a badass Imperial officer. Oh, well. So much for that. But yeah, I completely agree. It was really great to see him pop up in there. I'm loving how many of these recognizable actors.
Oh, it's great.
Because after season 1, like Favreau's phone was ringing off the hook saying, hey, Johnny, you think I can get a little guest spot in one of the episodes? Like, that's
I'm
happening.
waiting for the Kogi truck guy that he does Chef Show with.
Oh my God.
Guest appearance.
I would be shocked if he hasn't popped up in it already. You know what? I won't be surprised if he was like the bartender in episode 1. I mean, I don't know if there was. But you're right. What is that chef's name?
I forget. I'll look it up. I would do the same. I would bring all my friends on.
I would too. All right. Let's see here. Joseph, where are we at here? Sorry. There we go. Joseph writes, I wish Ahsoka wasn't spoiled months ago. Yeah, I think for people who are fans of Ahsoka, that would have been a huge surprise, right? Can you imagine people who are fans of that character if you got into this episode and now he's talking to Bo-Katan and says, where do I find a Jedi? Go to this place, and find Ahsoka Tano. I would have rolled my eyes.
Or they didn't even have to give away the name if they want to be that secretive.
But I mean,
here are the coordinates.
Can you imagine the reaction?
Go find this person.
Can you imagine the reaction?
Yeah, I know.
Like, people would have lost their shit.
Right.
They would have.
Well, they still might.
I mean, no, of course they will, but I mean, they know she's coming, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's one of those things where I don't think there was any way to keep that secret.
Right.
I just think that's just too big of Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano. I think there's just too many people that would know on the inside. It would have been impossible to keep that secret. So they had to let that out on their own terms. But you're not wrong, man. I mean, if that was something that just got revealed for the first time in that episode last night, people would have lost their minds. It would have been a great moment. But you know what? It was still a great moment. It was still a great moment. All right. Next up, James Argento writes, Bo should be in her 50s now since she was in her 20s in the Clone Wars. And Ahsoka should be in her late 30s, early 40s. She was 12 in Clone Wars movie. Yeah, again, I feel like, that meme from Rain Man, not from Rain Man, but when in The Hangover, when Zach Galifianakis is doing his Rain Man thing and you see all the mathematical equations, I feel like that whenever we start talking, what age would this character be?
I know, it's so hard to track.
This in relation to this and all that kind of stuff. But I think you're on to that, James. I think you're right about that. All right, guys, listen. We're just about out of time here, so I'm going to go kind of quickly through these last few questions. Forgive me for going through them kind of fast, but I want to make sure we get to all of them that you guys sent in. So let's fly through the rest of these ones here. We've got Operation Spider writes, RIP to those who thought Sasha Banks was Sabine. Also, today's my birthday. I'm old now. Happy birthday, Operation Spider. May you have a glorious day and a glorious year ahead of you, my friend. And yeah, that did kind of put it to bed that Sasha Banks wasn't Sabine. Not surprising. I think she had 2 lines.
She had 1, I think. 1 or maybe 1 or 2. She was still bossing it.
She was fine. She was fine. I mean, she's sexy though. I mean, she's like she's gorgeous. So to have her be in that shot and whatever is really striking. But I mean, she was fine. And I heard some people complaining about her acting, and I'm like,
she had 2 lines. Yeah, and she delivered it.
She delivered them perfectly
bad,
fine.
Yeah.
I had no problem with it. All right. Double Crit writes, Episode 4, Xenomorph bursts out of Baby Yoda. Yeah, that's right. The face hugger got him and planted an egg we just didn't know. And now that's it. They're going to shock everybody. Baby Yoda dies in Episode 5. He just blows up. Alien Queen comes out of him. That would be hilarious and sad. Okay. Zach Houston writes, the Armorer could return. Oh, I hope she does. The Armorer could return
as a spinoff,
as an antagonist if Jin departs the way that he was raised in. Love the lore of Children of the Watch. Added this episode. Adds to the idea of a diverse Mandalorians. I completely agree it adds to the idea of a diverse Mandalorians. But the Armorer also really comes across as benevolent. There's something about there's a rationality to her. It's like, look, you got this baby. We're responsible for that baby. I just don't see her becoming an antagonist. Like, to me, she strikes me as, oh, you don't want to follow the way anymore? Okay, bye. Then you're out. Right. But I don't see her coming back as an antagonist. Now, maybe I'm just saying that because I love the character so much.
Right.
But I don't know. I haven't even thought about the armor. Do you think there's any chance we see her this season? That just when Mando needs her, she pops back up, or maybe do you think that waits for another season?
Yeah, I think there's a chance. I think there's a good chance, actually.
I hope so, because he's going to need some new singing birds.
True.
He's got to be out of them by now, right? He's used them twice.
Right.
And she said it's very rare, so I don't know. I hope she pops back up. Okay, thanks a lot for Zach. Appreciate that. Casinema Reviews writes, this might sound weird, but did Bo-Katan's hair give anyone else prequel trilogy nostalgia? Something about it just made me think of some of the hairdos. Well, I mean, here's the thing, Casinema. You know that when they're doing costuming and they're doing set design and they're doing all that kind of stuff, they're probably thinking, what's going on in the Star Wars world? I thought her hair was actually quite consistent with what we saw in the animated stuff, actually, if I'm remembering it correctly. I thought it was exactly pretty consistent.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was, but even if it was prequel era, it wouldn't be completely surprising, all things considered, that they'd probably try to get some consistency in there. It looks the same. Some people are, you're looking it up right now? Mm-hmm. Like, some people just look for these details, and you found it. You found it, Casinema. All right, James L.H. writes, John, you are mostly right about seeing everything from the trailer, except we haven't seen the context of the brief clip of stormtroopers on speeder bikes. That's true. Remember, I was just saying, like, I feel like everything other than Carl Weathers and Gina Carano we've seen now. You're right. That's a great observation, James. We have not seen the speeder bike stuff yet. Now, whether that'll be in an episode with Carl Weathers and Gina Carano kind of on their own solo mission, or whether that'll be... No, I think we saw Mando in that too. But anyway, great point, great observation. Good on you for pointing that out. Well done. All right. Benjamin GL writes, where are we at? Mando cuts off Moff Gideon's arm, claims the Darksaber, and becomes ruler of the Mandalore. Later on, Baby Yoda becomes Rey's Padawan. That's my fanfic for also Chris Pratt joined Thor 4 today. Yes, he did. Chris Pratt officially going to be Star-Lord in Thor 4, which is not really surprising when you understand poor Thor. Not really surprising when you understand how like Endgame ended.
Yeah.
So not really surprising. And actually we talked about that on the John Campea Show a couple of months ago, that we had heard that Chris Pratt may actually be joining that, and turns out he did. So no big surprise there. But don't laugh. I have heard other people think that Mando's going to end up with the Darksaber and become leader of the Mandalorian. He does not strike me.
He doesn't want it.
He doesn't.
He's like Jon Snow.
He doesn't want it.
Yeah.
He's also not a leader. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've seen some leadership from him in like the Marshall episode and whatever, but no, you don't have Bo-Katan show up and then have Mando end up with the Darksaber.
Right.
It's going to end up with Bo-Katan.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, so we'll see. All right, next up, K Major writes, John, as a grown-ass man, I yelped when Baby Yoda was kicked in the pool with that creature. So you were very distraught.
I was like, oh my God.
You were very distraught when that happened.
And they had to eat it.
Yes.
The pod. And then Mando almost didn't make it. Yeah, that whole scene was frightening to me.
Again, I am still very distraught over the fact that iconic floaty crib is gone.
Oh, I know.
I just think of that crib with Baby Yoda.
He's very exposed right now, actually.
Yes.
It makes me nervous, the fact that he is.
That's right, because not only did it protect him from that creature,
yeah,
but like when they were in episode 1, when at the beginning of episode 1, when they're in that fighting arena, he sees, oh, crap's about to go down. Yoink! Yeah. Close it all up. It's been his protective shield, and yeah, so I'm kind of there. Anyway, let's see. But so I'm with you, K Major. All right, Benjamin GL writes, also, I love Ahsoka, and I think with how loyal Lucasfilm is to its actor, it is a moral sin to cast Rosario Dawson and not Ashley Eckstein. Here's the thing. Aaron Cummings was on the show the other day, and she repeated something that I think a lot of film fans need to take to heart. You know, I'm always saying the characters are not there to serve the actors, and the story is not there to serve the characters. actors are there to serve the character, and the characters are there to serve the story. And Aaron said the other day, which I thought was great, is that as an actor, I am not the story. As an actor, I am there to help tell the story. The first priority is what is best for the character. That's the first priority. Not showing loyalty to a particular actor or whatever. It's what's best for the character. And I've had some exposure to Ashley. And I think she's great. Her voice is fantastic. I think she's part of the reason why so many people like that Ahsoka Tano character. But if you're going to do live action for the first time, and you can get a live action actress of the caliber, an Oscar caliber talent, like a Rosario Dawson, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. You do what is best for the show. And I think at the end of the day, while there certainly would have been some very poetic things about Ashley doing it, and I certainly, even as somebody who's not a fan of the character, I certainly would have had no objections. Like if they said, and Ashley Eckstein is going to be playing the character, I would have been, oh, that's kind of cool. I mean, the person who does the voice for it and all that kind of stuff. But it's not like she played the character live action before.
No.
Right? Like if Ashley had already played the character live action before,
right,
I think there's a bigger argument to be made there.
True. But
we've never had Ahsoka Tano in live action.
Right.
And understanding the age, all that kind of stuff, if you can get a Rosario Dawson who is a perfect fit for that character, then you go with Rosario. I mean, again, and I know I'm saying that as somebody who's not a fan of the Ahsoka Tano character. So there are some people who are probably screaming at me through their computer monitors like, you don't understand, John. And you'd be right to say that. I don't, because I'm not a fan of the character per se. So I have, I believe, a better perspective. And I think at the end of the day, you do what's best. And if you got a choice to get Rosario Dawson in your movie to play a character that nobody's played in live action before, you get Rosario Dawson. I mean, that's just me. But again, I don't think it would have been a bad idea to get Ashley. Not at all. But if you can get Rosario Dawson, you get Rosario Dawson. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, that's kind of my take on that. Let's see here. Last question of the day comes to us from Suthius, who writes, even without having seen Clone Wars or Rebels, even I flipped out when I saw the Darksaber from season 1. I asked myself, what does this mean? You know what, Suthius? You probably raise a really good point. Like even people who didn't were probably like, is that a light? Does that dude have a lightsaber? That's what probably most people were thinking. Does that dude have a lightsaber?
Yeah.
But it's the people who knew it was a Darksaber that were really, I don't watch a ton of reaction videos online, but weren't we over at your brother's? And he put on a bunch, like a sequence of YouTube videos of people reacting to the Darksaber. I mean, I really thought people were going to defecate themselves. They're so excited to see the Darksaber. And you know what? That only would have been topped, I think, if like one of the viewers who wrote in earlier said, like if they had never mentioned that Ahsoka was going to be in this season and all of a sudden they just dropped her name. Oh my God, the YouTube reaction videos to that would have been gold. That would have been gold. Anyway, guys, that's all the time we have. And let me just have you end this off. What do you think is going to happen next episode? Are we going to break off from Mando and Baby Yoda for now, and maybe now finally catch up with Carl Weathers and Gina Carano as Cara Dune? Are we going to finally catch up with them? Are we going to see the next stretch of the journey from Mando? Where do you think they're going to go with episode 4?
I think it's all of that. If I were to pick, I would want to. I actually think the ship and being in the condition that it's in is going to present more challenges in the next episode. So I think we're going to see more of the journey, to be honest with you. But because we know that Carl Weathers is directing the next episode and potentially directing himself, then I'm sure they're going to catch up at some point in the universe. But I think the ship is going to be more problematic than we think.
I have no idea. There's so much stuff they need to still do and directions we need to go that we know there's going to be a site like Jon Favreau already said that this season going to be a little bit more like Game of Thrones, where you're going to have some episodes where you're following other characters instead of these other characters you've been following already. And now we're going to split off. So there's a lot to do and a lot to accomplish and only 5 episodes left.
I know.
5 episodes left. Anyway, guys, That'll do it for Ann and I for this installment of our Mandalorian Season 2 spoiler discussions. We're doing it here every Friday. Guys, thanks so much for being here and being a part of this with us. This has been a lot of fun. You give me and Ann another thing to look forward to on Fridays. And in the meantime, where can people follow you in your adventures online?
You can follow me at Ann Campea as well as at Ann Cosplays on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter by my first and last name.
And you guys can, of course, follow me Monday through Friday, every day here on the John Campea Show. We do have, don't forget, guys, we've got an open mic podcast going up on the podcast feed this weekend. We're going to have a companion video that's going to go up this weekend because we fell behind a little bit on the live questions that came in. So we've got some stuff coming out this weekend as well. And then, of course, the John Campea Show will be back again on Monday. Guys, bless your hearts for being here today. Thanks for joining us for this. Please remember, guys, deadly serious. People are dying. There's massive, the biggest spikes we've ever had in this pandemic. So please do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for us, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, may the Force be with you.